The first thing I noticed when I pulled into my driveway was the pile of black garbage bags scattered across our manicured lawn. The second thing was my mother's pearl white Mercedes missing from its usual spot. My hands trembled as I shifted my beat-up Honda into park. I'm Zara, and this was supposed to be my surprise visit home from college for spring break. Instead, it felt like walking into a nightmare. The neighbor's curtains twitched as I stepped out of my car. 3 years of college had taught me to keep my composure, but nothing prepared me for seeing my entire life stuffed into contractor-grade trash bags, getting soaked by the sprinklers. A white envelope was taped to the front door. My name was written in my mother's perfect cursive. The same handwriting that used to leave encouraging notes in my lunchbox now spelled out my exile. You're not welcome here anymore. The locks have been changed. This is what's best for the family name. The paper crumpled in my fist. I pulled out my phone, dialing my mother's number. Straight to voicemail. Of course. Hey there, sweetheart. Mrs. Peterson, our elderly neighbor, called from across the fence. I've been keeping an eye on your things since this morning. Your mother and Tinsley left about an hour ago. Tinsley, my cousin. Everything suddenly made sense. Did they say anything? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Mrs. Peterson wrung her hands. Only that there had been some kind of family arrangement. They sold the house, dear. To someone in the family, I think. For $1, if you can believe it. To protect the family assets is what your cousin said. $1. They sold my childhood home, my grandfather's house, for $1. I was gathering my bags when a sleek black BMW pulled up. Tinsley emerged, designer sunglasses perched on her nose, looking like she'd stepped out of a magazine cover. "Oh, Zara, what a surprise," she said, voice dripping with false sweetness. "I thought you were staying at school this break. Didn't your mother tell you about the new arrangements?" "What arrangements, Tinsley? The ones where you convinced her to sell our house for pocket change?" She laughed, the sound like breaking glass. "Don't be dramatic. It's a family matter. We're protecting what's ours. Besides, you're never here anyway, always off at that scholarship school of yours." "This was my grandfather's house," I said through clenched teeth. Was being the operative word. Tinsley checked her reflection in her phone. "The deed's already transferred. Maybe if you'd been around more, you'd know what's best for the family." I watched her sashay to the front door, my front door, and unlock it with a key that probably still had the hardware store shine. Something wasn't adding up. My grandfather had been meticulous about his property, about legacy. He wouldn't have left things this vulnerable. I pulled out my phone again, this time Googling the county recorder's office. My hands shook as I pressed the call button. "County recorder's office. How can I help you?" "Hi, I need information about a property deed." I rattled off our address, my heart pounding. "Let me look that up for you." Keys clicked in the background. "Yes, I have that right here. Would you like to know who's listed on the deed?" I gripped the phone tighter. "Yes, please." It looks like there was a recent transfer attempt, but there seems to be some confusion. The original deed from 5 years ago lists 2 names, Elias Ross and Zara Ross. The world stopped spinning for a moment. My grandfather had put my name on the deed. Before he died, he'd made me a legal owner, and nobody knew. "Could you repeat that?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "You're listed as a co-owner, miss, which means any sale or transfer would require your signature. Do you want me to email you a copy of the deed?" A slow smile spread across my face as I watched Tinsley through the front window, arranging flowers in what she thought was her new foyer. "Yes," I said. "Please send everything you have." My grandfather always told me I was his legacy. Looks like he made sure of it in more ways than one. I got back in my car, leaving the garbage bags where they lay. Let them think they've won. Let them celebrate in my grandfather's house, drinking wine in his study, sleeping in rooms that didn't belong to them. They wanted to play games with property? Fine. But they forgot the first rule of real estate. Always check the deed. I pulled away from the curb, already planning my next move. They thought they could throw me away like trash, but they were about to learn what happens when you underestimate the quiet one in the family. My phone buzzed with an email notification. Deed documentation attached. Game on. "You know what your grandfather used to say about that tree?" Quinn asked, scrolling through the deed documents on her laptop. We were sitting in her cramped studio apartment, surrounded by takeout containers and legal printouts. "Which one?" I asked, though I already knew. "The big oak in the backyard. He said it was older than the house itself." I smiled, remembering summer afternoons under that oak's sprawling branches. "He called it the guardian, said it watched over everything that mattered." My grandfather had been right about so many things. I closed my eyes, and suddenly I was 12 again, following him around the property as he pointed out property markers and explained the importance of boundaries. "A legacy isn't just about money, little bird," he'd say, using his special nickname for me. "It's about protecting what matters. Some people forget that part." Quinn's voice pulled me back to the present. "Zara, look at this." She turned her laptop toward me. "The date your grandfather added you to the deed. It was 3 months before he passed away." "He never told me," I whispered, "because he knew they'd try to talk him out of it." Quinn highlighted a section of text. "He did it quietly, legally, with 2 witnesses. Your mother and Tinsley had no idea." I pulled out my phone, opening the Photos app to a picture I'd taken earlier at the county recorder's office. The document was yellowed, but the signatures were clear. My grandfather's steady hand, and next to it, the witnesses, his lawyer and our old gardener. "What's your next move?" Quinn asked, closing her laptop. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Hi, Zara. This is Savannah Franklin from Meridian Real Estate. Your friend Quinn gave me your number. There's something you should know about the zoning changes behind your property. Can we meet?" Quinn peered over my shoulder. "Perfect timing. I did some digging. Savannah's legit. She specializes in commercial development." I typed back a quick response, setting up a meeting for tomorrow. My phone buzzed again, this time with a call from my mother. I let it go to voicemail. "You should hear this," Quinn said, pulling up a local news website. "They're rezoning all the land along the creek. The swampy part behind your house? It's about to become prime real estate." The memory hit me like a thunderbolt. My grandfather walking me through that boggy back acre when I was 15. "Everyone thinks this land is worthless," he'd said, pointing to the marshy ground. "But worthless is just another word for not yet valuable. Remember that, little bird." I grabbed my keys. I need to see something. 20 minutes later, I parked a block away from my old house. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the property. Through the kitchen window, I could see my mother and Tinsley laughing over wine glasses. But I wasn't interested in the house. I made my way around back, staying close to the neighbor's fence. The old oak tree stood sentinel over the yard, and beyond it, the supposedly worthless swampland stretched into the darkness. My phone lit up with another text from Savannah. "Just confirmed. City Council approved the rezoning. That back acre? It's worth more than the house now. A lot more." I smiled in the growing darkness. My grandfather's voice echoed in my head. "Some people only see what's right in front of them, little bird, but you've always seen further." Walking back to my car, I passed Mrs. Peterson watering her flowers. "Oh, Zara," she called out. "Did you hear? Your cousin's been talking about putting in a pool where that old swampy bit is. Says she's going to make something of that wasteland." "Is that so?" I kept my voice neutral. "Interesting timing. I told her what your grandfather always said about that land, but she just laughed. Said the old man didn't know what he was sitting on." My phone buzzed again. Quinn had sent a screenshot of a real estate listing. "Prime development opportunity. Newly rezoned commercial parcel." Below it was a message. "Meeting set up with Cody from Perkins Development tomorrow at 2. He's interested." I looked back at the house one last time. Through the window I could see Tinsley gesturing dramatically, probably planning her imaginary pool. My mother nodded along, both of them basking in their dollar store victory. They thought they'd written me out of the family story, but my grandfather had written me into something much bigger. My phone chimed with one final message. The county recorder had finished processing my deed verification request. The property was officially confirmed in my name. Tomorrow, I'd meet with Savannah and Cody. Tomorrow, I'd start turning my grandfather's foresight into their nightmare. But tonight, I stood under the old oak tree one last time, placing my hand on its rough bark. "Watch over this for me," I whispered. "Things are about to change." 8.7 million, Cody said, sliding the proposal across the sleek conference table. "That's our initial offer for the back acre, pending environmental surveys." Savannah, my realtor, kept her poker face, but I caught the slight widening of her eyes. We were sitting in Perkins Development's downtown office, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling windows and architectural models. "The rezoning makes it perfect for our mixed-use project," Cody continued. "Retail on the ground floor, luxury apartments above. The creek view is a major selling point." I picked up the proposal, thinking of my mother and Tinsley planning their pool party in my backyard. "And the existing house?" "Would need to come down." Cody pulled up a 3D rendering on his tablet. "The development footprint requires the entire parcel." My throat tightened. That house held every memory I had of my grandfather. But then again, my mother and Tinsley had already poisoned those memories. "There's just one potential complication," Savannah interjected. "The current occupants are illegally attempting to transfer property they don't fully own," I finished. "I have the documentation right here." Cody reviewed the deed papers, nodding slowly. "This is actually cleaner than most family situations we deal with. You're the legal owner, Ms. Ross. The $1 transfer they attempted was invalid without your signature." My phone buzzed, a social media notification. Tinsley had just posted photos of their garden soiree. "Creating new memories in our family estate. Blessed Shior legacy." The images showed my mother and Tinsley posing in sundresses beside my grandfather's prized rose bushes. Uncle Bobby stood in the background, raising a champagne glass. "How soon can we move forward, Team Rao?" I asked, turning my phone face down. "We've already filed preliminary permits," Cody replied. "Standard procedure to lock in the zoning. Your name is on them as the property owner." Savannah raised an eyebrow. "That might cause some waves." "Let it," I said. "When can we close?" 30 days, Cody said. "We'll need environmental studies, but given the rezoning timeline, we want to move quickly." Another buzz from my phone, a text from Quinn. "They're planning some big announcement party next weekend. Tinsley's inviting half the town." Perfect timing. "One condition," I said to Cody. "Nothing goes public until closing. I want all the paperwork ready, but no announcements." He smiled. "Done. Though you should know, construction notices will go out to adjacent properties next week, required by law." "That's fine." I signed the preliminary agreement. "They'll find out soon enough." Later that evening, I drove past the house again. Caterers were setting up tables in the backyard, my backyard. String lights twinkled in the old oak tree, and a banner hung across the back porch. "Welcome to the Clayton family estate." My phone rang, Uncle Bobby's number. I let it go to voicemail. "Zara, it's your uncle. Listen, there's some confusion with the city. Something about building permits in your name. Call me back immediately." I pulled into Mrs. Peterson's driveway. She was waiting on her porch with 2 glasses of iced tea. "Quite the party they're planning," she said, handing me a glass. "Your cousin's telling everyone they're going to restore the property to its former glory." Through the gathering darkness, we could see Tinsley directing the catering staff, gesturing toward the swampy back acre like a general planning a conquest. "Your grandfather would be rolling in his grave," Mrs. Peterson muttered. "He knew what that land was worth. Why do you think he never developed it?" "He was waiting," I said softly. "He told me once, patience is the difference between a good decision and a great one." My phone buzzed again. An email from the city planning department confirming receipt of the development applications. In the attachment was a notice that would go out to all neighboring properties next week. Mrs. Peterson squeezed my hand. "You're so much like him, you know. Quiet, observant. He always said you were the only one who really listened." Through the trees, I could hear Tinsley's laugh carrying across the yard. She was probably already planning where to put her pool furniture. "Would you do me a favor?" I asked Mrs. Peterson. "When you get the construction notice next week, could you make sure to mention it at their party?" Her eyes twinkled. "Oh, honey, I'll do better than that. I'll bring the actual notice with me." I finished my tea and stood up. In exactly 10 days, that party would become a very different kind of celebration. My phone lit up one last time, an email from Cody's legal team with the preliminary contracts attached. The subject line read, "Ready for signatures, 8.7 Mallard Development Agreement." I looked back at the house, at my mother directing caterers under the oak tree's branches. They thought they were celebrating a new beginning. They had no idea it was actually the end. The charity fundraiser was in full swing when I walked through the front doors of my childhood home. Quinn had helped me select the perfect outfit, a black cocktail dress that screamed old money, paired with my grandfather's vintage pearl earrings. "Zara?" Tinsley's voice cut through the crowd. "I didn't expect to see you here." "I bought a ticket," I said, holding up the invitation. "It's for charity, after all." She recovered quickly, plastering on her society smile. "Of course, how community-minded of you, though you might have dressed more appropriately for a garden party." I sipped my champagne. "I dressed for business, actually. I hear there are some interesting development opportunities in the area." Tinsley's smile flickered. Before she could respond, my mother appeared, looking elegant but strained. "Zara, what are you doing here?" "Supporting local causes," I said. "Grandfather always said it was important to invest in the community." Uncle Bobby materialized beside them, his face flushed from too much whiskey. "Speaking of investments, we need to talk about those permit applications." "Bobby," my mother cut him off sharply. "Not now." I watched Mrs. Peterson circulating through the crowd, the construction notice tucked carefully in her purse. Right on cue, she approached our group. "Oh, have you all seen this fascinating document?" She pulled out the notice. "Something about major development plans for the back acre. How exciting!" The color drained from Tinsley's face as she snatched the paper. Her eyes scanned the document, stopping at my name listed as the property owner. "This must be a mistake," she said, her voice tight. "No mistake," I replied. "Just good planning. Grandfather taught me all about that." My mother grabbed my arm, her fingers digging in. "Kitchen, now." She practically dragged me through the crowd of mingling guests, past the caterers, and into the kitchen where I'd once helped my grandfather bake cookies. The slap caught me off guard, stinging across my cheek. "How dare you," she hissed, "coming here trying to ruin everything we've built." "Built?" I laughed. "You mean what you stole? For $1? We did what was necessary to protect this house from your reckless decisions." "My reckless decisions? Like going to college? Like not letting Tinsley control every aspect of my life?" She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "You have no right to this property. We made sure of that." I opened my clutch slowly, deliberately. The copy of the original deed felt heavy in my hands. "Actually, Mother, Grandfather made sure of something else." She stared at the document, at the 2 names listed as legal owners. Her hands began to shake. "That's not possible," she whispered. "He wouldn't—" "Wouldn't what? Protect his legacy? Trust me more than you?" The kitchen door swung open. Tinsley stood there, holding the construction notice like it was contaminated. "Aunt Daphne, we have a serious problem. The development company already has all the permits," I finished. "Funny how things work out when you actually own the property." Tinsley's face contorted. "You little—" "Careful!" I cut her off. "There are donors right outside. Wouldn't want to make a scene." Through the kitchen window, I could see Uncle Bobby arguing with Mrs. Peterson, his face getting redder by the second. Guests were starting to stare. "Whatever you're planning," my mother said, "stop it now. Think about the family name." I straightened my grandfather's pearls. "I am thinking about it. I'm thinking about how you threw my belongings onto the lawn in garbage bags. I'm thinking about how you celebrated stealing my inheritance. We didn't steal." "Save it." I headed for the door, then paused. "Oh, and you might want to hold off on those pool plans, Tinsley. The bulldozers will need that space." I walked back into the party, head high, letting the kitchen door swing shut on their stunned faces. Quinn was waiting by the bar, trying not to smile. "How'd it go?" "Better than expected." I grabbed another champagne flute. "Mrs. Peterson, you have impeccable timing." The elderly woman winked. "Your grandfather would be proud, dear. He always said you had steel in your spine." My phone buzzed, a text from Cody. "Final contracts ready. Closing date set." Through the French doors, I could see my mother and Tinsley huddled with Uncle Bobby, their faces pale as they examined the deed copy I'd left behind. "Should we stay for the donor speeches?" Quinn asked. "No need." I set down my glass. I think my point's been made. As we walked out, I heard Tinsley's voice rise in panic. "What do you mean we can't stop her?" The oak tree cast long shadows across the lawn in the setting sun. Soon it would be gone, along with everything else they thought they'd stolen from me. My phone buzzed again, the closing date and time now officially scheduled. Let them panic, let them scheme. In exactly 1 week, they'd learn what it felt like to lose everything, and I'd be there to watch. "Sign here and here," Cody said, sliding the thick contract across the conference table. "Initial each page." My hand was steady as I signed away my childhood home. Quinn sat beside me, reviewing each document with her pre-law precision. Savannah stood by the window, watching the city skyline. $8.7 million, Savannah said, almost reverently. "Your grandfather would be impressed." The last week had been a storm of legal threats and desperate phone calls. Uncle Bobby had tried everything: lawyers, private investigators, even attempting to challenge my grandfather's mental state when he added me to the deed. Nothing stuck. "One last signature," Cody said, "and we're done." My phone buzzed, a voicemail from my mother. "Zara, please, we can talk about this. Whatever you want, money, apologies, anything. Just don't destroy your grandfather's legacy." Delete. I signed the final page. "Congratulations," Cody said, gathering the papers. "Construction starts Monday." Outside the law office, Quinn squeezed my arm. "You okay?" "I should feel something, right?" I watched the traffic below. Guilt, maybe? Sadness? "They threw your things in garbage bags," Quinn reminded me. "They tried to erase you." My phone rang again. Tinsley this time. I answered on speaker. "You vindictive little snake," she hissed. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "Sold my property for market value? Unlike some people, I didn't settle for $1. "My engagement party is next month. We were going to host it in the garden." I laughed. "Better find a new venue. The bulldozers won't make great party decorations." "Your mother is devastated," Tinsley spat. "She hasn't stopped crying." "Funny, I didn't hear her crying when she changed the locks on me." Quinn gestured to her watch. "We had another meeting with the developers in 20 minutes. "Goodbye, Tinsley. Good luck with the wedding. I hear the community center has a lovely event space." I hung up as she was mid-screech. "That felt good," Quinn admitted. We were heading to the elevator when Mrs. Peterson called. "Zara, dear, you need to come see this. They're having some kind of meltdown on the front lawn." I could hear shouting in the background. "What's happening?" "Your uncle's here with some lawyer, waving papers around. Your mother's crying on the porch steps. And Tinsley, well, she's not taking it well." Quinn and I exchanged looks. "We'll be right there." 15 minutes later, we parked down the street. The scene was exactly as Mrs. Peterson described: Uncle Bobby red-faced and yelling, my mother crumpled on the steps, and Tinsley pacing the lawn in her designer heels. You can't do this, Uncle Bobby shouted when he saw me. This house has been in our family for generations. Exactly, I said calmly. And Grandfather made sure it stayed with family he trusted. Trust? My mother stood, mascara streaking her cheeks. You're destroying everything he built. No, Mother, I'm destroying what you tried to steal. There's a difference. Tinsley stormed over, jabbing her finger at my chest. My father has investors lined up. We were going to develop this property ourselves. I smiled. With what legal right? You're not on the deed, remember? We're family, my mother pleaded. Family? I pulled out my phone, showing them the photo I'd saved, my belongings scattered across the lawn in garbage bags. Is this how family treats each other? Uncle Bobby's lawyer cleared his throat. Ms. Ross, perhaps we could discuss a reasonable settlement. The reasonable time for discussion was before they tried to steal my inheritance. Now we're past discussing. My phone buzzed, Cody confirming the construction schedule. I turned to leave, then stopped. Oh, and you have exactly 72 hours to vacate the property. The demolition crew needs a clear workspace. You can't be serious, Tinsley gasped. Check the contracts you tried to forge. The house and land are sold. Your illegal occupancy ends Monday. Mrs. Peterson appeared on her porch with a glass of lemonade, settling in to watch the show. Where are we supposed to go? My mother asked, her voice small. Not my problem. I headed back to my car. But I hear the extended stay has weekly rates. Quinn was trying not to laugh as we drove away. In the rearview mirror, I could see Uncle Bobby throwing his useless legal papers on the ground, Tinsley screaming into her phone, and my mother, still standing on the steps of a house that was no longer hers. My phone lit up with a final text from Cody. Demolition permit approved, Monday 8 a.m. sharp. I thought I'd feel emptier, watching my childhood home slip away. Instead, I felt lighter, cleaner, free. Want to get coffee? Quinn asked. Actually, I said, I need to visit Grandfather's grave. Tell him it's done. The sun was setting as we pulled away, casting long shadows across the lawn where my belongings had once been thrown away like trash. Soon, everything would be different. And that was exactly the point. Monday morning dawned clear and crisp. I parked across the street at 7:45 a.m., watching the house through my windshield. Quinn handed me a coffee from the cup holder. They're still in there, she said, nodding toward the Mercedes and BMW in the driveway. Think they believe you were bluffing? They always did underestimate me. Right on schedule, 3 massive yellow bulldozers rumbled down the street, followed by Cody's black SUV. The construction crew began setting up barriers and caution tape while my family watched in horror from the kitchen window. My phone rang. Uncle Bobby? The police are on their way, he threatened. This is illegal forced eviction. Check your email, I replied calmly. The eviction notice was served 10 days ago. You chose to ignore it. The front door burst open. Tinsley stormed out in silk pajamas, waving her arms at the construction crew. Stop! You can't do this. We live here. Cody stepped forward, hard hat in hand. Ma'am, this is private property under development contract. I have all the permits right here. This is our house, she screamed. Not according to the deed and sale documents, Cody replied, maddeningly professional. Now, for safety reasons, I need you to clear the construction zone. My mother appeared on the porch, still in her robe. Please, she begged the crew, just give us more time. The first bulldozer revved its engine. The sound of china rattling inside the house carried across the lawn. I stepped out of my car, heels clicking on the pavement as I approached. Tinsley spun toward me, face contorted with rage. You evil little... Careful, I cut her off. The neighbors are watching. Indeed, every house on the street had spectators on their porches. Mrs. Peterson was serving coffee to her book club, all of them gathered for the show. Zara, my mother pleaded, this house, these memories... I reached into my purse and pulled out a check. Here's your $1 back. That's what you sold it for, right? The bulldozer inched forward. The china rattled louder. Uncle Bobby's Mercedes screeched into the driveway, him and his lawyer jumping out. "We have an injunction," the lawyer shouted, waving papers. Cody didn't even blink. "No, you have an injunction request that was denied last night. Would you like to see the judge's response?" The bulldozer's blade touched the garden wall. My mother screamed. "Our things are still inside," Tinsley wailed. "You had 10 days, I reminded her. "The same courtesy you gave me with those garbage bags." The wall crumbled. Inside, a crystal vase crashed to the floor. 5 minutes, Cody announced. "Grab what you can carry and clear the zone. After that, we're proceeding as planned." They ran inside in a panic, emerging with armfuls of clothes, jewelry boxes, and photo albums. My mother clutched her prized crystal collection. Tinsley struggled with designer handbags. "Your grandfather would hate you for this," Uncle Bobby spat as he carried out his golf clubs. "No," I said quietly. "He prepared me for this. There's a difference." The bulldozer pushed forward again. The kitchen windows rattled in their frames. "Time's up," Cody called out. "Clear the zone." My mother stumbled down the steps one last time, mascara streaming down her face. "Zara, please. Where are we supposed to go?" I looked at the garbage bags they'd stuffed with their belongings, so similar to the ones they'd filled with mine. "Not my problem," I echoed her words from months ago. "But I hear the extended stay has weekly rates." The first bulldozer slammed into the front wall. The sound of splintering wood filled the air. Tinsley screamed, dropping her armful of shoes. My mother sank to her knees on the lawn. "All our memories. Should have thought about that before you threw away mine." The roof began to cave. The old oak tree watched silently as decades of family history crumbled into dust. Quinn appeared at my side, holding out an envelope. Perfect timing. I handed the envelope to my mother. Inside was a single photo, me and my grandfather on the porch steps, his arm around my shoulders, both of us smiling. "He knew," I said softly. "He knew you'd choose wrong. That's why he chose for you." The house groaned, walls buckling. Uncle Bobby's lawyer was already walking away, shaking his head. Tinsley sat in her BMW, sobbing into her steering wheel. My phone buzzed. A text from Cody. "Development plans finalized. Groundbreaking ceremony next week." I watched as the bulldozer took down the last standing wall. Through the dust and debris, I could see straight through to the back acre, the land everyone had dismissed as worthless. "Let's go," Quinn said. "The demo crew can handle the rest." I took one last look at my mother, still kneeling on the grass, clutching that photo like a lifeline. "Goodbye, Mother," I said. "Thanks for teaching me exactly what not to do with a legacy." The old oak tree cast its shadow over the ruins as we drove away. Some lessons, it seemed, were worth $8.7 million to teach. The local news vans arrived 3 days after the demolition. I watched the coverage from Quinn's apartment, sipping coffee as the reporter stood in front of the rubble. "A family dispute turned property war has left one of the city's oldest homes in ruins," Charine, the reporter, said. "Sources say the multi-million-dollar development deal has caused irreparable rifts." Quinn muted the TV. "Have you seen Tinsley's social media meltdown?" I pulled up Instagram. Tinsley had posted a tear-streaked selfie. "Betrayed by blood. My wedding venue destroyed. Sometimes family hurts you the most. Heartbroken, Char toxic family." The comments were brutal. Her fiancé's family had apparently seen the news coverage. "Her engagement's off," Quinn said, scrolling through her phone. "His family pulled out after the story broke. Something about concerning family dynamics." My phone rang, a number I didn't recognize. "Ms. Ross, this is Margaret from Evergreen Cemetery. We found something unusual during our grounds maintenance. A safety deposit box key was left at your grandfather's grave." Quinn and I exchanged looks. 30 minutes later, we stood in front of his headstone. The morning dew still clung to the grass, and someone had left fresh flowers, not my mother's usual roses. "Mrs. Peterson," Quinn guessed, nodding at the wildflowers. "She said she visits him sometimes." The groundskeeper handed me the key. It was attached to a familiar leather fob, my grandfather's initials worn soft with age. "The box is at First National," I said, recognizing the key type. "He used to take me there when I was little." The bank manager recognized me immediately. "Your grandfather was very specific about this box," she said, leading us to the vault. "It was only to be accessed after certain property transactions were completed." She left us alone with the box. Inside was a leather-bound journal and an envelope with my name on it. "Read it," Quinn whispered. The letter was in my grandfather's steady handwriting. "My little bird, if you're reading this, then everything has happened as I feared it might. Your mother and cousin always valued appearance over substance, control over growth. I watched them try to clip your wings for years. The journal contains everything: property deeds, account numbers, and most importantly, the truth about our family's legacy. You were never the quiet one they dismissed. You were the watchful one, the patient one. I'm sorry for the pain they caused you, but I'm not sorry for trusting you with everything I built. The last entry is for you alone. Love, Grandfather." Quinn squeezed my hand as I opened the journal to the final page. "Zara protects. Zara preserves. She always finds the way." Below was a list of accounts, properties, and investments I never knew existed. The house had just been the beginning. My phone buzzed. Uncle Bobby again. "The development deal was just the start," he threatened. "We're contesting everything, every account, every property." "No," I cut him off. "You're not. Check your email." I'd had Quinn forward the journal's contents to our lawyer an hour ago. The documentation was airtight. "You've lost everything," I said quietly. "Just like you tried to make me lose everything." I hung up as he started shouting. Walking out of the bank, we passed a coffee shop with the morning news playing. Tinsley was on screen, trying to shield her face from cameras as she moved out of her luxury apartment, apparently funded by family money she no longer had access to. "Was it worth it?" Quinn asked as we drove back to the cemetery. "Watching it all fall apart?" I thought about the garbage bags in the rain, the locked doors, the champagne parties on stolen property. "They thought they were writing me out of the story," I said. "They didn't realize they were just finishing a chapter Grandfather started long ago." We parked near his grave. The wildflowers Mrs. Peterson left were dancing in the breeze. My phone lit up with notifications. Tinsley's engagement officially called off. Mother spotted apartment hunting in the budget side of town. Uncle Bobby's law firm dropping him as a client. Development project groundbreaking scheduled for next week. "Your grandfather knew," Quinn said softly. "He knew they'd self-destruct if given enough rope." I placed my hand on his headstone, feeling the cool granite under my palm. The morning sun cast long shadows across the cemetery, reminding me of the old oak tree's shade. "He knew something else, too," I said, opening the journal again. "He knew revenge doesn't rebuild you, it just clears the ground." Quinn pointed to the final page, where my grandfather had drawn a small bird taking flight. "So what now?" she asked. I closed the journal, tucking it safely away. The groundbreaking ceremony would mark the end of one legacy and the beginning of another. "Now," I said, "we build something new." Behind us, the sun climbed higher, warming the wildflowers that refused to be contained in perfect rows, just like me. The ribbon-cutting ceremony drew quite a crowd. I stood at the podium, scissors in hand, looking out over what used to be our backyard. The mixed-use development gleamed in the morning sun, modern architecture blending seamlessly with carefully preserved green spaces. "And so," I concluded my speech, "I'm proud to announce that the Elias Community Center will be free for all local residents." The crowd applauded. In the front row, Mrs. Peterson dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. Quinn stood beside her, grinning. "The scholarship program will cover full tuition for 5 students annually," I continued, "because everyone deserves a chance to build their own legacy." More applause. Through the crowd, I spotted a familiar figure trying to blend into the background. My mother, wearing last season's clothes, watching with red-rimmed eyes. I cut the ribbon. Cameras flashed. The doors opened, revealing the community center's centerpiece, a magnificent stained glass window salvaged from my grandfather's study, now casting rainbow light across the entrance hall. "Your grandfather would be proud," Savannah said, joining me as people filed inside. "Using the development profits for this?" "It's what he would have wanted," I replied. "Building something that lasts." Quinn appeared with a tablet. "You should see this. Tinsley's posting about moving to another state. Apparently her social circle doesn't understand her journey." I handed the scissors to an event coordinator. "How's her job search going?" "Not great. Turns out social media influencer doesn't pay like family money did." A hesitant voice behind me. "Zara?" I turned. My mother stood there, clutching her purse like a shield. "The center," she said softly. "It's beautiful." "It's useful," I corrected her. "That's what matters." She glanced at the scholarship announcements posted in the lobby. "Your grandfather taught you well." "He taught all of us," I said. "You just weren't listening." A group of students walked past, touring what would be their new study space. Their excitement was palpable. "I was wrong," my mother whispered, "about everything." "Yes," I agreed. "You were." She reached for her purse, hands trembling. "I found this in one of the boxes we salvaged." She pulled out a small, worn book. "Your grandfather's original property ledger. I thought, maybe it belongs in the center's library." I took the book, feeling its familiar leather cover. "There's something else," she said. "The extended stay. It's not—" "I know." I met her eyes. "Quinn told me you've been looking for apartments." She nodded, tears threatening. "There's a unit," I said carefully, "in the residential section upstairs. Affordable housing was part of the development plan, if you're interested." Hope flickered across her face. "It's not charity," I added quickly. "You'd pay rent like anyone else, but you'd be close to your job at the mall." A tear escaped, tracking down her cheek. "Why would you—" "Because he taught me something else too," I said, nodding toward my grandfather's stained glass window. "Legacy isn't just what you build, it's how you build it." Quinn appeared with more news. Uncle Bobby's wife left him. Something about financial misrepresentation. My mother flinched. "The application office is down that hall," I told her, pointing. "They open at 9 tomorrow." She nodded, clutching her purse tighter. "Thank you," she whispered, then hurried away. Quinn raised an eyebrow. "You sure about that?" "No," I admitted, "but he would have wanted me to try." We walked through the center, past the library with my grandfather's name on the door, past the study rooms filled with eager students, past the community garden where Mrs. Peterson was already organizing volunteers. My phone buzzed, a message from Cody. "Phase 2 planning meeting tomorrow?" The development's second phase would transform another neglected property into something useful, something lasting. Outside, I stood where the old oak tree once grew. Its wood had been repurposed into benches throughout the center, still watching over everything that mattered. "Ready to go?" Quinn asked. "Almost." I pulled out my grandfather's journal, opening to the last page where the little bird took flight. Below his final message, I added my own. "Legacy isn't what you take, it's what you build, what you give, what you leave behind." The morning sun warmed my face as I closed the journal. Through the center's windows, I could see people exploring, connecting, building something new from the ashes of something old. Somewhere in the distance, a bird called out, free, unfettered, finding its way, just like he always knew I would. "Okay," I said to Quinn, "now I'm ready." We walked toward the car, leaving behind the ruins of what was, and stepping into what could be. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction at all, it's creation.